People will throw stones at you, but don't throw them back. Collect them all and build an empire.
Welcome to the CM Kozaman special podcast on the early 2000 Turkish alien encounters of the third kind. Our story takes place in June 4th, 2001 in Uşak, Turkey. In the Narla village, something was afoot. But it did not tread the ground, nor did it descend from our world, but instead it came from another world. Fortunately, the contactees had something in their hand. A stone was thrown, in fact more than one, so the visitor fled and disappeared. It was a meeting between galaxies and civilizations, and it left its mark in history. Yes, everyone, welcome to CM Kozaman. Once again, we are discussing the deepest lore on what is one of the lesser known UFO cases in the world. Lesser known because of its cultural isolation. If you live in Turkey, you probably may have heard of this weird and bizarre story. But if you don't, like most of my viewers, it will strike you as quite spectacular. What happened one day in rural Turkey was a group of farmers were heading to the field on their trusty old tractor, where a strange creature without arms and surrounded by glowing lights and what by some accounts a glowing egg-shaped light in its belly appeared. And promptly these people, being very scared, threw some stones at this alien and I'm just looking for an excuse to play this $1 million animation. The alien just flew away and disappeared. But this state-of-the-art cutting-edge animation, it's not free. I mean, it takes some effort to make. So if you really want to support this channel, before we deep down into further discussion of this incident, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/cmkozaman. The video link is below. And also consider supporting Prometheum for their contribution to the intro of these videos. Alright, so what happened was, what I just described, something like this really happened in rural Turkey. This is in the western part of the country, still a kind of rural part of the countryside, let us say, in the Narla village. So before long, this incident was discussed in municipality meetings, and because of that, it dropped to the local media, and we don't have many records online because this was 2001 and online news was still a new thing in Turkey. But believe me, I remember those days and this discussion was everywhere. It began with news clippings like this in NTV, MSNBC. This was a kind of co-branding effort to create a sort of left liberal, The Guardian style newspaper in Turkey, and it kind of succeeded for a while. And it says, they threw stones and made the alien creature run away. And then a more sensationalist newspaper, the more center line at that time, the Milliyet newspaper, said, the alien took the stones and he fled away. And here, if you just zoom in its glorious 144p glory, there's this cartoon of this kind of disgusting sentiment, really popular at the time. So here's the country bumpkin with his mustache and his cap on, throwing stones at the alien who apparently had come in peace, but he's now running away. And the undeclared subtext here is that these bumpkins, they are so backwards, they throw stones at the alien, haha. And it's the kind of sentiment that, let me just say, led to quite surprising electoral results in Turkey and in rest of the world, in many, many different countries. Anyways, here is a deeper dive down into the MTV MSNBC article. It says, Farmer Fevzi Cham of the Narla village claimed his tractor stopped by itself at 4:15 a.m. Now, this is an important detail because there are many UFO encounters where cars and other vehicles stop by themselves. When he was driving to the field, he saw a creature around 5 meters tall. So this is also an interesting note because in the description, in the article, the farmer is quoted by saying, I was 5 meters away from him, and he in turn was 5 meters tall. Scared, Fevzi Cham and the people in his group, so he was like with a bunch of people. This is a common thing in rural Turkey where if you want to go to the field and work there during the rest of the day, you start out during an early time, so it's not very hot. And usually members of your working group are members of your family. You all go together, you take care of the things down at the field, and you come home early. But, this time they were stopped by this 5 meter tall creature, apparently with the power to stop vehicles. So, scared, Fevzi Cham and people in his group started throwing stones at the creature, which rose up to the height of a minaret. Now, this is quoting verbatim from Fevzi Cham's account. He says, bir minare kadar yükseldi, which is, I guess, around maybe 10 or 12 meters high, and floated towards the nearby town of Ahmetler. Now, keep this in mind too. Like, the creature rises up almost in a light kind of fashion, like a will-o'-the-wisp, and floats towards another town. Now, when we go towards the final amazing part of this deep dive expedition, this is gonna make some creepy sort of sense. Shortly after other villages reported similar encounters, the incident was mentioned in Provincial Governor Ayhan Çevik's meeting with local governors. So there's a provincial governor, the kaymakam, and then there's a provincial governor, the vali, and there are local governors, the kaymakams. So this thing made it to the meeting minutes, and a police portrait of the creature was drawn. The unidentified entity looks like a human being, it says, and we're gonna do a deeper dive into this police drawing, of course. I mean, this is just an amazing drawing. Once again, one of my many theories is that this kind of art is like, it belongs in a museum of its own. It's a record of the times. It's a record of people's sensibilities. So there. So it's a 5 meter tall, amazing creature. Unbelievable. I mean, here's a representation of what it may have looked like. Really creepy, with something like a glowing light in its belly and surrounded by red lights, and it had red glowing feet. So this is a more refined reconstruction based on this police reconstruction, which was later published in the news. And then in the more sensationalist newspaper, the Milliyet newspaper, it says the same farmer is quoted as saying the creature was around 60 or 70 centimeters tall. So already from the day one, there's a discrepancy of sizes. Are you a Gimby or are you a Chonky? Make up your mind, alien. Of course, this is a result of basically garbled reporting. I mean, all of these interviews, I'm certain they were done by telephone, and the local, let us just say, like, press in this country, it's not known for its due diligence. And like, I remember for like an arts article or something, I was interviewed by a magazine from the United Arab Emirates, and those guys had a fact-checking department, and it was just an arts newspaper, not the biggest thing. But I haven't seen fact-checking departments in not even the greatest Turkish newspapers, so there's something like that. But so it also lends an air of surreality to the whole episode. Like, is this a giant creature or a tiny Gimby? Let me know in the comments which creature you would prefer. But let's do a deeper dive. What was it? What was this thing? I mean, so let's look at the police drawing, the first drawing, hot of the encounter based on the farmer's accounts. It says it had a bright aluminum colored dress or clothing. And it says Gubulik, dark yellow color like a light on its belly. It had reddish glow on its sides. Yanlar kırmızı, as it says. And then the creature's feet were bright red lights glowing. Kırmızı ışık yanıyor. So that's interesting. And it's just this thing. And it's just, I mean, if you think about it, as an alien entity without arms, by the way, I must add, it's quite scary. It's almost like a floating casket or a floating spirit, like a ghost kind of thing. It kind of does look like those New England tombstones in the United States, doesn't it? Pretty scary customer, if you ask me. And it also reminded me of the Fresno nightcrawlers, which were observed in the United States in 2011 in several different occasions. These were like whitish colored, long-legged creatures, observed walking quite realistically in, I think, doorbell cam recordings. And, you know, there's an entire deep lore about these creatures too, so look them up if you want. But, you know, from Fresno to Turkey, I guess, you know, maybe, who knows? And then this is another photograph of the Fresno nightcrawlers. I mean, frankly, I think this was just a very clever forgery built with ropes and like something like puppet equipment basically, but they really look weird and creepy, and they really look like something from another world would, you know, not a humanoid alien, but a strange two-legged walking apparition. And then in some ways, especially this drawing, kinda resembles the Point Pleasant Mothman too, especially with the lack of the arms and the red glowing accents. Well, this one doesn't have the wings, but maybe the wings were just folded on its sides, who knows. And then there's like a slight resemblance to these little robot-let aliens observed in the Franco-Belgian border near Quarubel, apparently scaring the hell out of this like handsome-looking railway worker or something. Like the UFO was shining a light on him, and I was like, ugh, giving them his like scary, sexy face, and the robots were just vibing around him. Once again, these were like the least similar entities reported in UFO lore, but they kind of still fall within the same clade for at least lacking arms. So, I don't know. Coincidence? In France, in Fresno, in the US, in Turkey, you all got the same armless beings just waddling about. Waddle, waddle, waddle. And it waddled away. And much has been made of this like hostile interaction. In fact, we are gonna see like there's this really kind of like self-hating and kind of cringe way in which modern people hate on countryside bumpkins. And it's like a meeting between galaxies and you threw stones at them. But I mean, come on. You see this, you see something like this in a dark road, and I don't know what else you'd be flinging at it. Let me just say that. And, you know, it's not native to Turkey. I mean, there's this famous case in Ohio in 1955 where local countryside people had a shootout with these creatures called the Hopkinsville Goblins. And the shootout lasted some nights, and this goes down in UFO folklore as one of the strangest and perhaps even the more believable cases. But I don't know. All I'm saying is no one, like these farmers, they don't deserve shame for being hostile to these creatures. I mean, if I saw an alien like that, if a big dog walked up at me, I'd throw stones at him because I knew he could attack me. So why not the same with an ungodly apparition like this, you know? So there. And of course, years ago, I made a like scientifically realistic reconstruction of this creature too. And here at cmkozeman.com, CM Kozeman YouTube channel, you are seeing this for the first time. My reconstruction of the Uşak alien. Basically, I interpreted the glowing light on its belly as the glowing light from a jet belt. So in my mind, this was a armless vestigial arm alien with kind of like manipulative digits on its feet. So it had kind of like dexterous feet, let us say. And this light was just like a low gravity floating jet belt or something. And just for shits and giggles, I gave it a little belly button. Maybe they reproduced by giving birth, and I gave it like proper proper gray alien eyes with a vestigial mouth and vestigial arms. Just my sense of world building, I guess. But if you like this, go support me at patreon.com/cmkozeman, and you'll be able to download this talk, all of its slides, and a high quality version of this alien image absolutely for free. Okay, moving on. Let's look at the aftermath. I mean, this incident created what I can describe as a media furore about aliens. So, secular city people not wanting to be left behind, the countryside people started reporting UFO encounters of their own. There was this one big expose published in the Sabah newspaper a few months later, and I'm just gonna paraphrase it for you. What the title says: the aliens love the Turkish Aegean. After the Uşak encounters, housewife Dilek Torcu filmed a homemade video of a UFO with her daughter. And these cameras were a big thing back in the day. Remember, no one had cell phones with built-in 4K cameras, so you had to be like prepared to record something. So this lady and her daughter recorded this glowing light from the nearby city of Izmir, which kind of prides itself with its kind of liberal values and stuff. But it says she filmed a UFO that was shaped like the moon, and then the UFO changed shape to half ellipse, and then like a lemon. And if these words kind of sound senseless to you, I'm translating it like with the tone intact. Like even this like newspaper copywriting, it's kind of like they try to make her sound like she's a clueless, almost bored housewife. And there's this like bizarre emphasis on housewives with homemade movies. I don't know what to make of this. But here it says UFO'lar 3 aydır fink atıyorlar. UFOs have been cavorting around the region for 3 months. 3 months of UFO hijinks. Gendarmerie officially reports, so there's like bullet points of more incidents. So let's just go through them. The Gendarmerie, that's like the countryside police, officially reported UFOs from Uşak Province on June the 8th. And then some people in an airplane observed UFOs near the city of Izmir in a place called Çandarlı on July the 7th. And after 16 hours, another housewife films UFOs on another amateur camera video near Bornova, Izmir. I mean, there's this like, I don't know, where is it like offhand sexualization? I don't know. But these newspapers, the way they wrote is like pure sensationalism. Only a few days later, businessman and wife observed 2 UFOs near Çeşme, Izmir. You know, he's reliable because he's a businessman. And the reports just keep coming. Encounters reported in Adıyaman, Sinop, Gaziantep, Kütahya, Kayseri, and even the far eastern Mardin provinces. It was UFOmania, says Sabah newspaper. All these like bored housewives with their homemade videos and UFOs shaped like a lemon, but also half an ellipse. And then there was a return a few months later to Uşak. So these villagers started reporting after effects of their encounter. Here, one of the witnesses, Selma Can, says she says, Selma Can, one of the villagers who claimed to see an alien in Uşak, said that the left side of my body started getting paralyzed after the encounter out in the field. And the newspaper says, in Milliyet, it says, she's expecting the results of lab tests. And then the government stepped in to kind of calm things down, I guess. And the government says there were sightings of aliens in Uşak before. But after this incident, The number of UFO witnesses grew. There are even educated people among them, he said. I mean, here you kind of see these like insidious and quite honestly arrogant class divisions in Turkey. Like offhand, the governor is saying, like, if you don't believe these countryside people, even educated people are seeing, even educated housewives, modern dressing housewives are recording UFOs. Oh my God. I mean, if you read the subtext, you kind of get an idea why things happened in Turkey politically a few years later. But let me just leave it at that. Anyways, this story was extremely popular. Like everywhere, they were talking and joking about these Turkish people. And this is like one of the self-hating modern Turkish people. So they talk about their own country people. These Turkish people. Where are you from, I wonder? London? I don't think so. Really, nothing is disgusting as someone who thinks he's not something. Anyways, and then everyone was joking about these, like, these countryside people, these bumpkins, they stoned the alien, And this even made as a gag in one of the most famous movies of that era, the early 2000s era in Turkey, the film Gora, which is like basically a whole space comedy about, once again, a countryside guy gets abducted, but he's uneducated, but he's wily. So he kind of goes on this space adventure and kind of like, I don't know, there's like a whole entertaining story there. This is a nice movie, Gora. Go watch it. So in one of the scenes in this movie, in 14th of July, 1789, this is the date of the French Revolution, by the way, some aliens land in the province of Aksaray, and there's a like ruffian, kind of like a ignorant peasant guy lurking around there. What he does is he stones the UFO, he stones the alien, just like this incident. He throws the stones at them, and he goes on to basically violate the aliens' diplomatic robot assistant. And this is exactly a scene you see in the movie, and I'm just gonna leave it there. I mean, this is like included in the film as a kind of backstory for the villain. They ask him, why do you hate Earth? Why do you hate humans? And he says, it's happened to my grandfather centuries ago, and this thing happens. And once again, it's the kind of like self-hating liberal humor coming into play. But to my defense, I will say that Gora is a great film, and the guy who wrote it, Cem Yılmaz, is still a very decent, well-respected comedian. And he doesn't descend into this sort of self-hating circles of literature as much as some other people do. And then, of course, what happens is an interesting organization stepped in. This is the Sirius Center for UFO Space Sciences Research. This is a very colorful outfit, let's say, headed by these like well-educated eccentrics. And they're a good bunch, they're an okay bunch. So the guy who's running this UFO center, it's a local center, we're going to look more into what they're doing now. He said that actually this is due to rich gold, uranium, and mercury mines in the region. And he wanted the UFO encounter site to be protected by the governors. Because apparently he says that there's 260 tons of pure gold in those hills, basically. The aliens who were chased by stones were actually after the gold minerals in that region, because it's like a common theme in UFO lore that aliens want to get gold and they want to use it for their kind of space vehicles or ascended level meditation or something like this. And then this other comedian, this comedian who is not the really talented comedian who wrote the Gora movie, but he's another guy, I guess in between glorifying terrorism and doing some other questionable stuff. This guy, whose name I'm not even gonna mention, says that our guys threw a stone at the alien, and what if the alien threw the stone back? I mean, that's our people. We either throw stones or fling excrement. We made the aliens as rough and uncivilized as we are. Ha ha ha. Well, get banned. What can I say? By the way, this gold thing, even though it's a ludicrous claim, is real. And this region, this whole area, this place known as Kışlada, which is like a few kilometers away from this whole district in which the alien encounter took place. Where was it? The Narlı village. Okay. One of the greatest gold mines in Europe, and probably even the world, is there. And of course, this outfit is owned by Eldorado Gold, by our Canadian friends. I mean, if you're looking for an alien invasion, look no further. And this whole region is actually, and it's just really insidious and deplorable and sad. And this is what alien invasions look like. I mean, they destroyed the entire region. And I'll show you what happens here. They build a heap so they mine all the soil and stones from this place, okay? They layer it over in a kind of ziggurat-like pyramid over here. And what they do is they bleach the whole thing with sulfuric acid and cyanide. And it's actually a commonly documented process. It is called heap leaching. How innocuous. Heap leaching makes the stocks go up. For Eldorado Gold, what happens is they literally sprinkle acid on this entire heap, and it leaches into soil, basically, protected by rubber lining, of course. But one hole in this rubber lining and everything seeps to the soil, and then the gold can be refined. It's a common industrial process. They don't do this in Canada. They don't do this in the UK. They don't even do it in the US, I think. But they do it in Turkey. I mean, what can I say? If this is a just world, you will pay. Anyways, it's just another deplorable tangent, let us say. So all this kind of ludicrous stories, they do have some weird real life side alleys to go down to. And then after this incident, the discussion of UFOs, I mean, it was already kind of simmering in the background. I mean, there was something like UFOmania in Turkey. It really got going after the release of the movie Independence Day in 1996. And everybody was UFO crazy. Fortiana was really a big deal, especially in cities among educated people. These magazines such as Fenomen, and there was another magazine called Bilinmeyen, which means the unknown. They were bestsellers. And there were many, many books about UFOs. UFOs and Earthquake, UFO Truth and Lies, UFOs Forbidden Zone, UFOs are coming, UFOs, aliens, reptilians, and secret underground worlds, and just UFOs. You'd notice that a lot of these books are by another researcher called Farah Yurdözü, and she's a legit, well-known researcher of UFOs and weird phenomena, and she was a very popular, she made many popular TV appearances in that time. And my memories as a child growing up, I used to read her books, saw her on TV, and I think she's really active on the internets these days. I think now she's organizing these cultural tourist trips for basically strange and unusual and beautiful parts of Turkey, of which there are many even today. So Farah Yurdözü, if you drop on by, selamlar from a fellow fan. And then there are other books as well. This is more recent. A researcher named Erkan Arslan published this whole thing about UFO myths and basically the cultural aspect of these myths, which interests me more than the, I guess, what they call it, quote-unquote real UFO myths. I don't know. Many of these books were translations of cases that were already recorded in the US or the Western world, translated bits of from authors like Timothy Good and stuff, just cobbled together. It wasn't much, but it was still a lot in a country which didn't have anything else going. So there. And so after this case, the UFO mania really got a kind of boost, let us say, a UFO museum was established in Istanbul's Taksim district. So I still remember this very, very clearly because, okay, what they do is this part of Istanbul, it's full of these old apartments built by Europeans and I guess the city's bygone Greek community. So there are many old buildings with like narrow staircases and narrow streets, and it kind of looks like a rundown version of like southern France or something like that. So in one of these apartments, they like straight up turned one of the apartments into a UFO museum, and they kind of like turned, let us say, the living room into a kind of series of corridors with lots of panels, and there were like lots of, like you can see it here, like lots of posters about UFO types, alien types and stuff. And there were lots of models of UFOs and aliens and all these like Zeta reticulans and insectoids. And they were playing these atmospheric music in the background. It was very dark. And the piece de resistance was they had turned the bathroom into a UFO autopsy room. So in the bathroom there was a bathtub, and the bathtub was full of green liquid, and in it there was a gray alien model just lying there, and there were mannequins of like quote unquote scientists doing the autopsy on this alien. Now me as a kind of horny teenager, this place was, I'm afraid to say, this place was a go-to spot if you wanted encounters of an even closer kind with your date or significant other. Because in those days, there weren't many places where horny teenagers could be alone with their loved ones. So you knew it was kind of like a nudge, nudge, wink, wink thing. You go to the UFO museum. And it's a place that's already dark and weird. And I mean, hardly anyone visits, you know. So like among these, I mean, let me just tell you this much. The things these aliens have seen, oh my god. Everybody had some fun adventures. Everybody who was somebody had some fun adventures down there. What if we kissed in the UFO museum? And in some cases, oh my god, anyways. Youth. Anyways. And then to cap this off, in 2013, another UFO sighting was documented in Uşak, near the site of this original encounter. This was once again by our friends at the Sirius Center of UFO Sciences. By the way, please visit their website at siriusufo.org. It's in the Turkish language. I think they have some English content too. I mean, they seem honest. They're people you could have an interesting talk with. Let me say that much. And unlike many cultural organizations in Turkey, they're not a front for money laundering, so that's always a bonus. But go look them up. And if you are here from the Sirius UFO Association, hello friends! Welcome to CM Kozaman Planets. And I'm sorry for those weird stains on your UFO museum floor all those 20 odd years ago, but you know, it's a call of nature. Anyways, in 2008, this family also made another stab at fame, let us say. So the same family, joined by these other people, Hasan Tülü, Ferah Tülü, we already know the Can family. So they claimed they saw the aliens again, and now they said they were approached by a large object. They say object here, they say alien here. They say it was covered with a very bright substance. They tried to take cell phone pictures. You know, it was 2008, so everybody had more people had cameras then. And this guy said, like, no matter how many pictures I took, all I could get was a white flash, so it was kind of like photo-resistant. And they claimed that this object looked like a little bear cub. It had a red strip on its chest. It emerged from the ground 300-400 meters away from them, floated towards them slowly, hovered 50 meters above for around 20 minutes, and then rose up and disappeared. And they said, one of the old headmen of this village said, since 2001, these objects have been visiting the village, flying low and slow with lights. And keep this bit in mind, because it's going to come back to us like a ton of space bricks. But, you could interpret this as like some of these family members, they achieved like lots of fame back in the day. Especially if you consider you're not living in the big city and you're just living in the small village, and all of a sudden your attention of like a lot of media interest now. So it's kind of understandable. I mean, back in those days, media consisted of TV and newspapers. So if you wanted to like talk to a newspaper and something, the newspapers and the TV stations kind of offered you money. So these people, kind of, maybe it could be understood as a earnest way to grab back the spotlight again. Because why not? They don't have fancy Istanbul lives. But what was it really? Okay, so now let's put on our skeptic hats, and let me get my skeptic tea. What was it really? Okay, it could have been maybe a discarded parachute or something like that. I mean, there are some Air Force bases around this place, so maybe, who knows? It could have been, I think this is the most likely explanation, to be honest. It could have been discarded greenhouse covers. A lot of areas in this vicinity have greenhouse farming going on, and these farms are covered with like basically hundreds of meters of plastic. And every season this plastic gets replaced and it's thrown about and torn. So, it's not, especially in the dead of the morning, something like this floating in the wind. Maybe, who knows? Or maybe it could have been discarded mine clothing. I mean, all these cases of glow-in-the-dark strips, and when they try to take a picture, it glows in the dark, and all these glowing highlights. Maybe it's a kind of discarded piece of mine clothing. But then again, maybe in early 2000s, these kind of like safety clothes were not standard regulation in Turkey. You really have to understand that the 21st century is really like 15 years old in Turkey. I mean, before the mid 2000s, many people lived rural lives and they had like limited access to everything you consider part of regular life these days. I can't tell you how much we advanced, and there's a whole lot of social baggage that comes along with it, but I'll leave that unsaid for now. But it could have been mine clothing, or it could have been something that goes way, way, way deeper. Because now this is the best thing about this channel and best thing about these YouTube videos. When I'm researching for this stuff, I look at the issue from all its aspects. So I kind of like said, let's look at folk legends from Uşak Province, where this alien was seen. And boy, it did not disappoint, because folk belief in Turkey is a deep, underappreciated, vast repository of arcane lore. And you have these incredible stories told by people's grandmothers, people who are actually alive and living at the date of recording, which is the year of our Lord 2023. People are telling these local legends and claiming these supernatural experiences, which kind of look like they're older than, I think, both monotheistic religions. I used to think that maybe they're like a survival of Christian myths, but no, I think they're far older. They probably harken back to these legends of very ancient Anatolian folk religion, because you have things like this is a very nice book by Sylvia Wing Önder. It's a kind of like sociological study of local healing practices in the Black Sea region, so far away from our place. But read on. I'm just going to read a little bit from this book just to give you an example. So when Granny was 20 years old, she was working in the garden, okay? She was coming back from the field, as these people were going to the field, remember? Then Granny saw 3 lizards in a row on a blackberry branch. They were bouncing up and down. Ding, ding, ding, ding, ding, ding, ding, ding, ding. She wondered why they were doing that, so she threw a clod of earth at the lizards. It didn't hit them, it hit the twig, and all of a sudden, she felt someone wringing her intestines as if they were laundry, like squeezing them. So the air went out of her chest, her eyes went blind, and she fainted. She found out later that she had been unconscious for 3 days, completely comatose, unresponsive to anything. She couldn't see anything or hear. So for 3 days, the local religious leader, a kind of like an imam, the Hoja, came over to her and basically prayed by her, praying for these evil spirits to let go of her. And at the end of this ritual, he tapped her head and gave her a kind of ritual water washing, a ritual ablution with some water on her face. And the Hoja said to the spirits, "If you let her go, I will never interfere with you again." Remember, if you study like folk tales in Eurasian culture or whatever, this is like ancient stuff. But here it's being reported by somebody's granny, like this lady who's probably still alive. So the healer said, "I will never interfere with you again if you let this lady go. Let my people go." So the fairies, the periler, after being splashed 3 times with water, let go of this woman's possession. When Granny woke up, she couldn't remember anything about the situation of her body during those 3 days. She had been in a dream world the whole time, going from wedding feast to wedding feast with these supernatural lizard-like shapeshifters. They were going to places like unbelievable. The tables were full of beautiful fruits. The lizard ladies, spirits wore fabulous costumes. They were all dancing. Everything was beautiful. She didn't want to wake up. People saw a smile on her face while she was in the coma. When she woke up, she wasn't hungry because she had been feasting with the alien, reptilian, fairy ladies the whole time. And when he heard this, the faith healers, the local Hoja, started crying. The lizards had actually been cinler, periler, and they had been doing a wedding dance when she disturbed them. If Granny had accidentally hit the lizards, she would have been instantly killed. Oh my God. I mean, now what do you make of a story like this? What do you make of a story like this? It's like a textbook case of UFO abduction. The same stories: coma, out of the body experience, shapeshifters, reptilian creatures. Unbelievable. And I feel so proud because few people have made this link before, let alone doing it in an English language study. So if you know similar stories from UFO lore or from the local folklore of your own country, please let me know in the comments and we can maybe expand this project and turn it into something bigger. But oh boy, does it get bigger. Unbelievable. So there's a study actually. So one of the greatest things about Turkey these days, a lot of very smart people are doing these ethnological research about their home villages, hometowns, and this person named Türkan Çelik just published in 2020 a PhD about basically folk legends from Uşak, where these people had this experience. Unbelievable. Remember floating figures? Now see what's going to happen with those. And this study, I read it for 2 endless nights. One night I spent entirely sleepless just reading through this. It's nearly 600 pages long. Unbelievable. Solid gold primary resource. And the legends here are from the kind, like, it's obvious to see they have this arcane ancient root, and they kind of layered it over with maybe religious motifs or even like memories of local conflicts. And some of them are just unbelievably strange. And we're gonna see them all, but we're gonna start from like the more contemporary motifs. So in the 2020s, Greece, egged on by British imperialists, foolishly occupied Western Anatolia, and our Greek friends learned a tough lesson at the hands of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, Turkey's secular founding father and overall George Washington figure. So what happens is, there was a man in this area who was both a religious man and a governor named Bekir Hoca. And the wily Greeks pressed him into service as a kind of guide, but he was smart, so he led them into a desolate place and made them lose their path. And this way the Turkish army was able to like do a flanking maneuver and basically kick them out. And when his ruse was understood, the Greek invaders shot this man. Press F for Bekir Hoca right now. Press F, I'm waiting. F for Bekir Hoca to pay your respects. So he died, a martyr for the national cause. Now, okay, this is the layered memory of a recent and sad conflict, but see what happens. Because of this, every night over his grave, a light hovers over the tomb of Bekir Hoca, the war hero. Unbelievable. But it goes deeper. So this is an actual like transcript of an audio recording. So I'm just going to translate to the best of my ability. And there was a church here. Some people say it was an Armenian church, and it was torn down long time ago. So, it was torn down, a long time ago. We had nothing to do with it. It was a nothing burger, that Armenian church. Anyways, so people come over looking for buried treasure in this place, okay? But then, when they're looking for treasure, there's actually a jinn, a strange spirit that lives in this desolate Armenian church, and he's protecting it. So there's a spirit that lurks over this place, and then they hire a machine to dig it up. They basically like hire a kind of excavator or something, and then somehow this ejinni makinayı tuttu, and it means the jinn held the machine and made it stop and kind of moved it away, just like the aliens stopping cars, stopping tractors. Unbelievable. And he actually teleported the excavator from here to there. So the alien protector spirit was guiding this sacred tomb, and this kind of greedy people try to dig this place up. The spirit or the alien stopped the machine and just fucking no-clipped it. And from then on, no one dared touch the Armenian church ruins. So there, one more. Again, this is the layering of another sad memory from recent history. And now it gets really strange, because even before this terrible conflicts in the beginning of the 20th century, even before that, there were lots of legends about holy sites in this whole region, let alone the Uşak Province. So this is a photo of such one place. This is the tomb of a holy man, you see. This is what the houses look like in that time and age. Beautiful architecture. But this thing looks really arcane, and there's just some stones here, a walled off holy area, maybe something like a hill, and a sacred tree. That's also a very common thing, and nothing else. So there are tales of traveling light fathers. So from a tomb named Sungur, the grandfather, and when they use the name Dede, they don't mean like an actual granny. They don't mean a pop. They mean a holy man, an elder figure, and even like a transhuman, a kind of spirit figure that's beyond humanity. So this Dede came out of the Sungur tomb and traveled to the İtecik tomb, from one tomb to another at night, floating. There was a light burning, and he traveled with a green light. The Sungur Dede traveled to the İtecik Dede to converse. Will of the wisps, floating lights, traveling from one sacred age-old, archaic, arcane place to another. Unbelievable. It's just a UFO case. I mean, the idea must be forming in your heads right now that this is a phenomenon far older than UFOs, probably a common psycho-religious experience that many people share in this region, no matter who they are or where they're from. Unbelievable. And there's even more groups of so it says in this place, in Karacaahmet and Oruçlu, there were 3 sibling dedes. Each night, old people could see their lights rising in a triad, floating this way or that way, like stars. Işıkları böyle yıldız gibi, böyle ışıkları gelir gidermiş. Their lights went to and fro, like stars, like lights in the sky. It's a UFO case. Unbelievable. And this is not someone from deepest Indo-European history. It's like somebody's grandfather telling this story as lived experience. Unbelievable. Once again, there was a dede in Murat Mountain, travels to the Emir Baba Mountain, and then back. And by himself, he creates these lights. And this is told by the village minstrel, who's kind of like a shaman figure almost. And then you got tales of these lights alighting from somewhere, bir yerden, we don't know where they are, and descended into the cemetery, the holy site. But it says, şimdi gören olmuyor onları. No, now nobody sees them. The magic has left the world. The world has become demystified and bleak. Now it's a place of Canadian mine companies sprinkling sulfuric acid over the land. But there's even cases of the light entities talking to people. Okay, so my big older sister Hajar, by the old fountain up on the hill. Now, a lot of these places, these holy sites, sometimes there's a fountain there as well, and usually they have been in use since time immemorial. So it's not like a village fountain, but it's like a natural spring. So what happens is, older sister Hajar walked over to this place with the ancient fountain at night. So it's a no, you don't go there at night. So before going, she takes a bucket and runs there at night. But there, oh my God, Hajar abla has an encounter with white clothes, long flowing white beard. A light dede appeared to her, and she was shivering. She was stricken with horror, this lady. She saw it like a dream, and the dede told her, eve geri git, eve geri git, go back home. And she was so scared, she threw the bucket away, ran home, and for a long time afterwards, Hajar abla could no longer go there. The entity came as a ball of light, turned into a humanoid shape, spoke to her, don't come back here no more. Unbelievable. And remember, this is not a 1,000-year-old myth, it's somebody's older sister. I mean, unbelievable. And then there's this weirdest case, which is almost a beat by beat replay of the earliest UFO encounter, which we started researching, the encounter these people had. It's the same thing, beat by beat. Now, my father was walking up the hill by 100 meters or so. It's a steep pathway, narrow, only the oxen could go up and down it. And when he was going up there by the, once again, holy fountain or spring, he saw in the distance a candlelight. A candlelight. Hemen benim aklım da karıştı diyor. I was confused too. Is there something there? Is it what is it? And then suddenly the candle became a huge flaming torch. The oxen saw it too, his brother saw it too, his aunt saw it too, and the aunt was like, lay down on the ground right now. Sen bir yat. Hemen. And they all lie down. The animals were so scared. They were hurrying back, lying down. So they kind of like, go back. This light appears like a candle. Now suddenly it's a flaming torch. And then the torch grew up. Koskoca bir top halini aldı. Into a whole entire flaming ball. Turned into a ball of light, fire as big as a room. Böyle gür hem dönüyor diyor. Roaring. The ball of fire rotated. And bütün o çevre olduğu gibi aydınlandı diyor ya. The whole landscape was illuminated such that you could count the trees one by one as the rotating, flaming ball of light came over them. It's a UFO encounter. The cows were scared. Something happened here. And you know it's not someone faking it, because this is an ethnographic study. It's nothing to do with UFOs. It hasn't been conducted by the UFO science study city slickers. No, it's somebody's old relative just telling something in perfect honesty. I'm very confident that these people have been experiencing these things for generations, and what it is I can only guess at. And I would hazard to say that the 2001 UFO encounter was once again something like this. We don't know what. And then it goes on. The light came over us, started rotating above us. The animals fled away without us needing to like whip them on. And the flame walked behind us. I mean, it's also something like from the Old Testament, huh? And by God, he swears, there's a hill by our village and this other hill called the Jingöz Hill. And we reached that hill, and then the light, the fire stayed there, rotating, but it did not go further. So it waited for them. So it waited there. Maybe it could not go past that certain place. So the people and the animals, they kind of like escaped. And finally, breathless, these people reached the village. And they turned back and look. And this flame is still rotating there. Like it's like something from the Old Testament, something from the UFO encounters, something from the oldest, deepest, bony cores of human memory. And after this incident, his father was sick for 1 month. His mouth swelled up, his face swelled up from fear all over. He says, I almost died. And he told this all his life. Unbelievable. I bow with respect. I mean, this thing, we live in the same place with lived experiences like this, and no one can take that away from us. How nice. How, unbelievable. And then there's even more. There's even the case of a floating musician, minstrel father and his illuminated band. Okay, let's read this one too. My father did not tell this to me for a long time in case I was scared. Korkar diye. Beneath these people's house, there was an old site where a dede was buried or living. One day, and by the way, when this person was a child, she did not know about this, okay? One day, when she was near the haystack, she climbed. Okay, so I'll tell you what happens. So in these village houses, so there are houses like this, okay? And then there are sides adjacent to them, kind of like older buildings where people collect hay or maybe house their animals, but they're always right next to the house. And there's a kind of, sometimes these structures have like flat ceilings, so you could climb up on them, especially on summer nights. So what happens is that this person climbed on top of the old building they were using as hay storage, basically, a barn practically. And suddenly, vallahi saz çala çala böyle geldiler. So she experienced this vision of human-like things playing musical instruments and radiating a scintillating form of light. Demen olsan sonra baba dedim babam. And then these people were playing their instruments. They were like floating minstrel holy people. And she told this incident to her father. And then her father tried to console this lady. Korkma, don't be afraid. They consoled her, but at the end they revealed it. There was an old tomb here. And there were dedeler buried here. There were grandfathers buried here. I used to see them too, the lady's father said. Ben o akşam gördüm onları. Gördüm ben. I saw them that night. I saw them. Now, after reading these things, like, I really want to travel to deepest, darkest rural parts of Uşak, not taking any communications equipment, no nothing, sleeping in the open. I just want to have an experience like this. Because this lady, like, once again, there's no incentive for her to lie here, because these people are not fishing for interesting stories. In fact, if you read the text, you could understand from the nuances of the language that she is very shy and reluctant about this. But it's just unbelievable. And there are even like weirder tales. And in one place, for example, there was another dede buried, so another holy man or like entity creature buried, okay? But this dede was 6 to 7 meters tall. Almost like, where did we see this before? Remember how in the first version of the story, the people said it was 5 meters tall? And then one day later, the story was revised as 60 to 70 centimeters tall. Maybe out of fear, maybe it's the same motif. Unbelievable. how nice. This is the good kind of flex. Okay, so these people say at that time they did not know this old dede was 6 meters tall, and they built him a human-sized, like a normal-sized tomb, okay? And of course, that night, the dede intervened in somebody's dreams and says, "Taşları gövdemden koydunuz. You placed these stones on my body." And then the grave mason went back to the place, and the stones have been broken. They've been scattered about. Because this is Eğibisar dede. Not any dede, but the 7 meter tall, dream intervening, telekinetic, stone hurling Eğibisar dede. Much respect. And then they built him a proper tomb, 6 to 7 meters tall. And then in the old days, we used to have candles by their side. And then we used to pray to them for rain, and it would rain. So these are like nature entities or nature deities, almost. I'm very certain these people have some kind of actual lived experience, and I think it's a holdover from the most age-old, ancient Anatolian folk religion. And I don't know, maybe if you traveled there with a camera, maybe you wouldn't be able to film this, but I have no doubt that these people have had these experiences. Because perhaps that's what it means to be human. Perhaps that's what means to be human is more than being a buying and selling logical unit, but it's the ability to have these experiences. And maybe, just maybe, the universe functioned like this before logic intervened. Before logic came in, the post-Newtonian scientific revolution, logic came in and dried the world. And in places like Turkey, they survived for at least 4 more generations after Newton. Because these people were untainted by logic. They were still human beings. Now, everybody's about raising share prices by dumping sulfuric acid on the land. Everything is this is where science gets you. This is where logic gets you. This is where sensible thinking gets you. This is going to be the end of the world, And there will come a time when, let me just tell you that much. So there are even cases of illuminated and teleporting trees. Ağacın tepesinden böyle bir ışık yanıyor. There used to be these holy trees. Remember this picture? How there's this ancient tree which no one dares touch. Everywhere else is kind of barren, but not this place. And lights would appear on top of those trees. And then in this other Köseler village, one night, this giant pine tree, which used to be in the entrance of another village called Dutluca, suddenly crossed over to the Köseler village. The word they use is o yana geçmiş, which means it crossed over at one night to that side. Teleported. In one night. Unbelievable. And then they're even like this. Remember, this whole, it's a gold mine. This whole study is almost 600 pages long. 600 pages. And there are many, many more legends in this. Like I read it for 2 endless nights. I was illuminated. And I am only giving you the best. But there are also stories of giant snakes, human-headed snakes, and 2-headed snakes. At night, this snake, a giant snake, would appear to people. And they would call that snake Şahmaran. İnsan kafalı yılanların şahı. The king of serpents with a human head. Another legend says, there used to be a Kalfa Dede, another holy man, near this village called Susuzören. The name means waterless ruin. Unbelievable. There's an old tomb there. One day, this old elder named Ibrahim Ağa was walking past that tomb by the of the Galfa Dede near the Susuzören village, okay? And when he was riding, suddenly a snake fell behind him on his horse, presumably. And the snake chased him as fast as a horse, apparently. And then he ran away to a nearby lake, a fountain, and he turned to look, and it turned out it was a giant snake with the head of a human. And this is what my father and grandfather told me. This is the legend. And there are some like unbelievable. So our old people used to see a snake by this strange plateau, and it was a 2-headed snake. However, it happened, God had created him with 2 heads, and it used to attack people. But when one man says, Yan Yan Gash, the snake, the 2-headed snake, let him go and disappeared. So you know what to do when you're just chilling about in rural Uşak Province, and a 2-headed giant snake appears and attacks you. You say these 2 words. Yan Yan Gash. In fact, now I'm giving you all an assignment. Go take out your flip phones and find the person, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever friend, or your crush, and just text them these 3 words. Yan Yan Gash, which probably means Yan Yan Kaç, which means burn, burn and flee. 2-headed snake. Did you do that? Text them Yan Yan Gash. Now what are they going to respond with? Let's see what happens. And then you take it from there, and if it gets you somewhere, share the results with me. And then another lady says, near the cherry tree by a old field, there's a snake with 2 heads, each head which looks like çocuk kafası, child's head. This snake protects a buried treasure there. And the name of this serpent, this 2-headed, child-headed snake, is Tülüce. What a beautiful name. Now, some people might know I have this kind of like weird story named Turtle Man, Tosba Adam. And it's all inspired by tales like this, Tülüce. Beautiful name. Okay, let's go. And then it's obvious, I mean, these are survivals of age-old Anatolian religion. It was here before science, before logic, before gold mining Canadian acid companies, before UFO research groups, before these Turkish newspapers that can't even get a story corroborated, before these boring comedians, before religions, before wars. They were always there, and I think they will continue to be there for thousands of years to come. Thank you for watching. This has been CM Kozaman, and I am deeply and intensely inspired by these myths, these folk tales of Turkey, and I use them as influence for my surreal art. And these are just two of the works I painted after reading the main material for this Uşak alien encounter, which was apparently something more. And these are just my interpretations, maybe of these light fathers, and it's just beautiful. So if you support me on patreon.com/cmkozaman, you can see sneak previews of these paintings, which I haven't published anywhere else. So there. Also, please consider Prometheum at buymeacoffee.com/PrometheumS for their contribution to the intro video. And this has been it. Thank you all for supporting me. As you probably have been observing, I'm injecting this channel with new vigor. Now I'm having more videos, more exciting topics, and as you just saw today, we are engaging in first-hand research. We are showing things that, now most YouTube videos, they take information from somewhere and they kind of repack it, rehash it, but not me. I am engaging in first-hand research, or almost first-hand research. I am telling Western viewers new things that they have not heard anywhere else, and things they will not have the chance to hear anywhere else. So all your support is really welcome for this. So we have our patron tiers now. They come in 3 tiers, and in big videos I read everyone else, but for this video I'm only going to be reading the solid gold patrons who donate more than $10 per month. So thank you so much, Alexander Irishman. Thank you so much, Daniel Rusis de Melo. Thank you so much, Demit Tishin. Thank you, Ernst French, Finley Elliott, HHHH, Hayden, Hedrigal, Ian Ribeiro, Ibn Krut, Jakub Bobrovics, Matthew Kashevarov, Mike Trainer, big time collector of my surreal art, by the way. Surreal art like this, which you can also see if you join on Patreon. Nicola Gibson and Eric Suddard, who only recently joined last week, so thank you so much. Thanks to our aluminum jetpack floater patrons as well. These people donate between $5 to $10 US, and thank you so much. And James Bell and Cyber are new arrivals, so thank you and welcome to CM Kozaman Land. And thank you all my inexplicable global phenomena patrons. I mean, you make all of this possible. You donate maybe just $1 a month, but that's okay, that's enough. By banding our powers together, imagine, like, I'm doing all of this as a side job. I have my day job. Tomorrow morning I go do my day job. In the time between I do the research. Imagine what would happen if there were more of you, and you maybe bring over your friends, show these videos to other people, professors, classmates. Maybe they can pitch in too. And thank you all so much, including our recent arrivals, Tall Green Boy, Marianne, and Joel Kurmi. You are all a phenomenon, and I love you all, and together we'll make this channel into something even more exciting. This has been CM Kozaman, and have a good day.